Welcome to Faith in Practice, presented by Higher Powered Sports, PT, the podcast where faith meets everyday life and vocational calling. Each episode, your host, Kurt Kessler, and his guest will explore how to live out your faith in your work, relationships, and daily challenges. Let's grow together and discover how to live out your faith with passion and purpose. Let's get started.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Faith in Practice. Today, I am joined by my friend Greg Turner. He is a doctor of physical therapy, also an athletic trainer, and he is the owner of Legacy PT in Elizabethtown. So my perspective, Greg and I used to work for the same company. We crossed paths when we did athletic testing for some local high school teams. But our paths have come together even more as local PT business owners, and more importantly, a connection through our faith. So I invited Greg on today to have a discussion about faith-led business, or how faith has led us into our respective businesses and how faith has grown through it. So thank you for coming on today, Greg.
No, I appreciate the opportunity, Kurt. I'm looking forward to this.
So whenever I bring people onto this show, I always want to learn a little bit about your spiritual background, how your faith came to be, where it started, and maybe how it's developed over the years.
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up going to church. My parents kind of took me to church. It was, went every Sunday. Once I got a little bit older, Wednesdays was youth group night. And so, we'd be there Wednesdays and Sundays, and that kind of set a foundation for when I went off to college. You know, I did my undergraduate work up at Penn State, and certainly a lot of opportunities to get involved in a lot of different things up there. But I actually have an identical twin brother, and he and I both went to Penn State together. We roomed together, and we kind of both were in that mindset of, again, these paths can go different ways here at Penn State, so probably need to get plugged in somewhere and make a solid choice to stay on a good narrow path. And so we joined the Navigators student ministry there, got plugged in with a group of guys for Bible study, and Friday nights were a big worship night and kind of a corporate gathering for the Navigators. And I saw a lot of growth through those 4 years there at Penn State, diving in and just being plugged in with group of believers who could challenge me and push me to become a better version of myself. And then that's where my wife and I met. And so right after undergrad, we got married and moved to the outskirts of Philly for me to go to grad school. And we joined a church there, and kind of the transition back here to Lancaster County, where my wife was from. We were struggling to kind of find a church for a little while. It was roughly a year that we were bouncing around, trying different churches for a few weeks, just not really feeling like God was landing us in a certain spot. But then we had settled into Victory Church, which was great, and we were there up until a few years ago. But through that, there's a ministry called Men of Iron that started out of Mannheim, and I got plugged in with that. I got the privilege of being mentored, and then I was a mentor. Then I went through the mentoring again with somebody else, and that has created just a 8 to 10 year relationship with a guy, local business owner, who's been a great encouragement to me as well, and has brought in some other men that I get to do life with, get to try to challenge each other, learn from, and kind of grow. And so that's kind of, the journey of my faith, so to speak, over the lifetime.
Well, that's pretty awesome. And a couple things stood out to me. Anybody who has listened to the show for a little while now has heard me say this. My spiritual transformation came in college as well. And other people on here, we've talked about the way that God used us during our college years. But like when you look at the world and you think about the world, like, again, usually it goes the other way during those years. And as a father, I know you're a father of 4 kids, father of 4. Those can be real concerning years as a parent. And I'm not even close to that yet. So it's always refreshing to hear yet another story about how God used and shaped someone during their college years. And the other thing that you said, basically about how you and your brother had gotten involved. What was the name of it? Navigation.
Navigators, navs.
Yeah, navigators. And the way that you said it, basically like sharpening your faith or growing your faith, you described it like an athlete who like puts time into their craft at becoming better at this sport, or someone, a PT who's like putting in extra reps to get better at manual therapy. But
Right.
what some people might not understand is that we have spiritual muscles that we need to work out. We have spiritual, it's just like anything else. The more consistent you are with it, the stronger you become in it. So I just thought that was a really important parallel that you formed there.
Definitely. I mean, and there's that discipline, and there's active choice, right? It's like sometimes we got to put ourselves out there and step into something, and that's that was a aspect that it did take kind of a boldness to step out at this campus of tens of thousands of people I didn't know, and yeah, I'll put my name out there, and some random dude show up at my dorm and say, "Hey, you want to join this Bible study?" It was great.
So let's talk a little bit about what led you into your business. As I mentioned before, you and I worked for the same company, and now we both own our own small businesses, though very different, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But like, what were you feeling in your past job that led you to want to make the change?
Yeah, so I mean, I had been there. I worked there for 13 and a half years to the day, actually. And it's one of those where I was never necessarily looking to leave. I'm kind of an old-fashioned guy of like, hey, I'm going to just roll up my sleeves. I never need to be top dog or head honcho. It's like, it's not about me. But ultimately, I was getting this stirring of like, man, I'm not able to care for people the way I really want to. And that's not necessarily just the patient care side. It was even my team, my staff, right? As kind of a middle management position, there was only so much I could do to encourage or bless my team members. And so just started to get some inner turmoil. There I was in my late 30s, and it's just like, I got a lot of years left to work. What does this look like, another 10, 20 plus years from now? And started to get those nudges of like, I don't like business decisions. I want care decisions. And I kind of got to this point of, I don't know, I don't have my MBA. I don't have a business degree, period, right? But I really got to this point of, if I take great care of people, the business is going to be fine every time. And that just kind of prompted of like, all right, well, what does that look like? And how do I make that happen? And be able to have that too. And again, it's the taking care of people, not just the patients who get to walk through the door that we get the privilege of taking care of and they entrust care, but it's also the folks get to hire or bring on the team, and am I caring for them well? And just really wanted to be able to do that, as, though I do not do it perfectly, right? But to have the autonomy to be able to do that when I knew there were things I could not do but yet wanted to do within the corporate world.
Yeah. I can relate to some regard. Now, I was never in any kind of management position there. I was only, I graduated PT school in 2022, did the sports residency in 2023, and even just after a year and a half or 2 years, I was asking myself the same questions. Like, I have like 30 or so years to work left. Like, is this what I want it to look like? And the issues that I was having was not specific to that company. Everybody there treated me extremely well. I had really good relationships. But there was something about, as you said it, not being able to treat the way that I wanted to. And a big part of that was volume. I had done my SCS. I had gained all of this deeper knowledge, but it was hard for me to apply it to like 4 people at once.
Sure.
And so I through a lot of prayer, through a lot of soul searching, through a lot of whatever, felt led in this direction and, ultimately started my own thing. But for you, how did faith play a role in you opening your business? We talked a little bit about the professional side that drove us there, but what was your faith like during that time?
Well, it's funny because when I first graduated from PT school back in 2010, I always kind of had this I want to start my own practice. But then as I started working and, you see the challenges of erosion in reimbursement and this and that kind of dream got squashed, if you will. It was kind of like, it's too hard. Like, you can't do it. It's like the big companies and they survive based on volume, but like the small guy can't make it anymore. Mm-hmm. So that dream got squashed. But again, there was this little discontent growing. And honestly, I would say it was growing in my wife first, I would tell you. And I give her a lot of credit because I think God can use an amazing spouse if we're willing to listen. As men, there's a lot that we can learn and gain value from there. And, ultimately it became this time where my wife would even make a comment of like, worst case, we fail and lose money. For quite a while, there was always this kind of belief of, okay, if we have a certain amount in a bank account, like we're secure, like there's a security in a set paycheck that we know is coming. But it's like, well, ultimately, what are we putting our faith in there? Like, we're putting our faith in this company, not in God's provision, right? No. We're putting our faith in that, hey, this company is going to exist and be able to make payroll every 2 weeks or, whatever. And it's like, maybe true, a good track record. I was there for 13 and a half years, didn't get a paycheck, right? Yeah. But what am I putting my hope and security in? But there was that season where it was like there was a comfort, right? But then when my wife was starting to say, like, worst case, we fail and lose money, and that's counter to what she would normally say. She's not a risk taker by nature. But I think God used her to say that to kind of be like, hey, pay attention, Greg. Like, I'm ready to do something here. You've got to step out in obedience. And so I give Amanda a lot of credit. She's been through all of it and has been an incredible encouragement along the way, and great help. But I think God kind of used her to speak to me a little bit more as well. And then, kind of the group of guys that I meet routinely with, one of them who was my mentor through Men of Iron, and, encouragement from them to like, hey, in prayer, like, this is what God's calling you to do. Like, we all think you can do it, right? But ultimately you got to take the step. And so I think there's that aspect of just having great community, great people, from spouse to also group of men who could speak into my life and allowing them to do that.
It's interesting when you're listening for God's voice or God's call, how it can be spoken through unexpected places.
Sure.
For me, a lot of my spiritual experience has been, I'll say from within, just these feelings I get, or when I'm like deep in prayer or deep in connection, like just where my thoughts will be led. And that's kind of how I started, because I was pretty miserable going to work every day, and like I was almost just like praying for a way out of it. And the more I prayed and the more I connected, the clearer the path became.
Yeah.
And then I never ever once for a second wanted to own a business. Not once.
It's funny how God can change that.
Yeah, not once. Even in PT school, like they were talking about like, oh, who might want to own their own business one day? And I was like, I'll get in the back of the line for that, because I don't want the headaches. I don't want to manage people. I don't want to whatever. But here we are. And then I get pushed in this direction. I start my own business, and sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. Sure. The challenges that come along with it. You think, oh, I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to be in control of what happens. In reality, we're not in any more control. We're just in
just a tiny piece.
But even just like the marketing and making connections and getting your name out there as a tiny, tiny fish in this massive ocean. So since you started your business 2 years ago, what kind of challenges have you faced professionally and even spiritually in these 2 years?
Yeah, it's interesting. So honestly, there's like challenge and blessing are all mixed together when I think back over the 2 years of seeing how God has worked, even in the midst of challenges. And it's, I guess so I preface that because though there have been challenges, it has reassured me I'm doing what God's called me to do all the more because I see some of these things now looking in the rearview mirror as spiritual attacks. Like it was just there to rattle me. It was the enemy trying to discourage or sow fear into my life. But looking back, it's like, man, God's shown up in incredible ways, and it's just strengthened my resolve of I know I'm doing the right thing. So I give that little prelude there because, man, when I was starting this, I was still working full time, and it's like I'm a sole provider for a family of 6. My wife does a little part-time work, here and there on the side, but hands down, I would say I'm the primary breadwinner, so to speak. And it's like, I can't be out of work that long. Like, I got to get this thing up and going. And so, and trying to be a good steward of finances and resources, from navigating getting a lease signed to then had to demo the entire building. I shouldn't say demo the interior of the building and completely rebuild it almost exclusively by myself. But like kids were here at nights. I had some friends who popped in, here and there, but did almost all of the labor of framing every wall, laying every carpet tile, redoing the ceiling. My dad helped with some electric stuff, but that entire project from the time we signed the lease to the time the front door opened was 8 weeks. And I worked full time in the clinic where I was at before for 6 of those weeks. And I was in Maine 1 of those weeks. So in 8 weeks, while working full time, we were able to get a lease signed, plans drawn, permit approved, building done. And I look back and I'm like, that was a complete God thing. That doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I would go from the clinic, run home, throw down food, come here, work till 10, 11 at night, and then do it all over again, spend weekends here, etc. But I'm like, the amount of change in this building was wild in that period of time, given the constraints that were there. So that didn't even make sense, but I saw God show up. It was a challenge of time and effort. Day 1, I opened the clinic. My very first visit was a home visit in Palmyra, for someone who was post-op knee replacement. And then I'm driving here down 743 to get to the clinic for my very first patient visit. And car comes off of 283, drives up the wrong direction up 743 in my lane. I was unable to, I've never been in a car accident in my life, mind you. Not a fender bender, nothing. I swerved to try to avoid and not completely hit head on with this lady who was driving the wrong way up the road. But I smacked her good and totaled my vehicle. I'm sitting there. Now, bear in mind, I never felt the airbag hit me. I never felt a darn thing. Everyone's like, oh, you hit someone going 40-something miles an hour head on, you're going to feel that. I didn't feel a thing. So God's hedge of protection, I believe, was around me. But long story short, right there, it's fear of finances, of my car just got totaled. This is the very first day. Like, things got real of I'm now open for business, and now I just lost my car. I'm scared, like finance. I'm not in a position now to go buy another vehicle, right? Yeah. And just the enemy trying to attack.
Yeah.
But again, you look back now, it's like, man, God shows up, and I see it for what it was, right? And there were issues with credentialing, with insurance, and Medicare, right? And I ended up losing, I was treating someone, or Medicare patients in good faith because, without getting in the weeds, like without the active contract, as long as things were submitted, they'll go back and backdate. Charges are just suppressed. Long story short, they denied the initial application. So there was multiple months of Medicare patients that it was a loss. Like that was a write-off. Couldn't end up getting paid anything for them. So there was things that there were challenges there
Yeah.
and fears on the financial side, so to speak. But again, God's shown up. He shows up, he provides, and it makes me think back to, again, okay, where was I putting my security in a company before for a set paycheck versus at the end of the day, God provides what we need. Sometimes there's an abundance. Sometimes it's, all right, digging our faith roots a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
But I've seen him show up every time. So those are some of the things even just initially, it rocks you a little bit.
Yeah.
But you can look back and see God's hand on it.
It's, gosh, the car accident story just, I think you said it well. It's just the enemy attacks us in different ways, and whether that's potentially physically in something like that, or the fear that ensues over finances or getting a new car or business or whatever, it's just this ongoing back and forth. It's just these never-ending attacks, but you have taken the steps to prepare yourself spiritually to overcome those attacks. Now, you've mentioned financial stuff a few times and God providing. Now, I'm not asking for dollars and cents here, but because for me, the financial aspect of it is one of the big challenges. So for anybody either having their own business or considering their own business, what are the ways that you've seen God provide financially? What does that look like going from ground zero of starting to, okay, there is enough to pay my staff, there is enough to take home a paycheck for myself or pay the bills or whatever it may be? In what ways have you seen God provide to make this whole operation work for you?
So it's a great question. And there's lots of little tangible ways, I think. Even from the building that I'm currently operating out of, this wasn't the first space I had looked at. In fact, I was really far down a pathway with another space in a strip mall. And again, I would tell you, through God's grace, he closed that door. And in the moment, I was frustrated because I'd spent thousands of dollars on attorney fees and those kinds of things trying to get to the finish line of a signed lease. But then that door slammed shut, and I'm thrilled it did. I'm thrilled it did. I was frustrated as can be in the moment, but the cost for that space was way more, and I know God was protecting me on the financial side. So I'm grateful for that, because here was a much more manageable lease. It's a great landlord. I was able to look him in the eye, shake his hand, and kind of understanding of I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to make a go of this thing as a business. And he was willing to kind of accept that and kind of recognize all right, yeah, I think this guy's got it. And it's kind of the mentality he seemed to have, and it's been great. But, just so the building itself, and then also looking and saying, I don't necessarily need brand new everything, but even finding equipment and sourcing equipment that was lightly used, gently used. I know what startup costs were for clinics where I had worked, because I had the opportunity to open a couple for them. So I know what money was being spent on that, and I was able to do it for a fraction because I don't have the brand new shiny that's just going to get marked up and dinged up in a couple months of use anyway. So it's kind of all right, I find stuff lightly used, absolutely functional, and that's been a great way of, I would say, God giving an opportunity for me to steward things well from a financial aspect. And then, I don't know, God's just brought the right people to me at the right times too, right? I had a non-compete agreement and a non-solicitation agreement for 2 years, which, when I said I was leaving, I want to leave well. Integrity matters a ton. And so honoring God and how I left and honoring the agreements that I did sign 13 years ago I need to do that. So in any event, that gave me handcuffs, though, on where I could practice, but also who I could try to go after, right? As far as people working for me. So I got to that point where it's like, hey, I need another provider. Okay, well, where do I find it? Like the majority of the providers I knew worked for that same company still, and couldn't ask them to come work for me. I wouldn't ask them to come work for me because it was in violation of the agreement that I had signed. So it's like I tried to fish out there for folks that I could find, or maybe who had left the company before me, or that kind of thing, but everything was falling flat. All the efforts of my hands were falling flat. But when I held it with an open hand, it's like God put something right into it. I got an email from someone. Hey, I'm interested in your company. I'm going to be graduating from Messiah here. Jordan joined the team. Like, I didn't know Jordan. Ironically, he had worked for that other company too, and I had offers from them. I feel like God led him here and was basically telling me, like, Greg, like, stop trying to chase people. Like, I'll bring the right ones to you. And then Tiana, same exact thing. My next full-time provider, like, I was ready for another one. And yep, Tiana emails me. And so it's just really cool to see how God's shown up and provided in those ways that I couldn't have done.
You tried to do and couldn't.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, there. I got to rest in Him.
And that's so true in so many different ways, because even in my own experience, like when I push for something, when I push for what I want or push for what I feel is best for whatever X, Y, and Z, so many times I'm met with just a closed door, because what I think is best for me is not what's actually best. And so then God makes you sit and wait until the correct door is open, and you go through that door and you're like, oh, this is actually the door I wanted to go through. I just didn't know this was the right one.
Right.
So it's just amazing how God works. Do you have any, I don't want to say fears, but Satan works in a very fearful way. You've been established for 2 years. You've been growing. You've been moving in the right direction. Are there still doubts that Satan puts in your mind about moving forward with your business? Or I know sometimes unexpected obstacles come up, but like if you're looking at the future, because Satan's not going to be like, oh man, he passed my first couple of tests, I'm just going to leave him alone.
That would be nice, wouldn't it be?
It would be nice, but if I'm Satan and I'm looking at you, I'm like, gosh darn, he's beat me however many times before. I got to turn up my efforts to shut this business down, or whatever the case may be. So like what kind of challenges or what kind of ways do you see Satan trying to slow you down?
Yeah, I think, the business, if you will, has just naturally grown over the couple of years, I think, because, again, we're trying to love God and love people well, right? That's ultimately what it comes back to. That's the business model. Do the right thing for people, the business will be fine. Like, do it in a God-honoring way, and, like, the business takes care of itself. And so, the growth aspect, I think, is where, the enemy wants to give some, nagging doubts or fears or questions. Like, honestly, I'm actively looking at a second location. I don't have a desire to grow into some large corporate entity. I actually have zero desire to do that, but I've always kind of said I'd like to bless a couple of communities, Lord willing, or impact the care and change what folks expect out of therapy. And so honestly, it's that aspect of kind of the fear of, all right, would I be spreading myself too thin, or, do we lose culture and quality, and, those kinds of question marks. And at the end of the day, I think an N number of 2 clinics, it's still very possible to maintain high quality, high culture, right, and doing the right thing for people every time. I don't know where the end number becomes that you lose that, but I know there is a point where that happens. Despite no intention to do that, like, it just naturally happens. But yeah, admittedly, there's still some questions or, nagging little fears that I think the enemy puts in there of like, hey, should you actually be doing this? Or should you be walking down this path? And, I just keep coming back to, I don't want to force it. I don't want to push it. But if God opens doors, he opens doors. And I need the obedience to walk through them. But I don't want to be kicking them down. Right? So where is that fine line of my efforts versus, walking into where God's calling you?
Yeah.
And you need that obedience factor.
Yeah. And one thing that I overlooked in starting a business, and I wouldn't even say I'm that well established, to be honest. But like you almost get in this mindset on the front side of it, like, oh, once I get this thing rolling, it's just, the effort can go down or whatever, because things are just going to be, it's just going to be a rolling stone and it's just going to go forever, no problem. But
Sure.
That is so far from the truth. Like, in some ways, your efforts need to continue to be the same, if not even more, to keep it going in the right direction. Or, different challenges pop up, or Satan tries to work in our minds, or whatever the case may be. Like, I'm learning this is just a continual process, not just like get it up and running and then it just runs smooth forever. Yeah. It's not even close to reality. But how do you balance? You've said a couple things, basically alluded to how much work you've had to put into this. How do you balance that purpose and wanting to be successful, either for yourself or even for the purpose of God and blessing people, with a wife and 4 kids at home?
Yeah, I think it's still that battle for trying to keep first things first. So I opened here September 14th of 2023, and in March of 24, not even 6 months into this, my family and I went on a mission trip to Jamaica. It kind of felt crazy to think about, okay, we're going to spend all this money to go to take the family to Jamaica to serve, at the YWAM base there in Montego Bay. How am I going to staff the clinic? I'm not even that well established yet. But it's something that my wife and I had wanted to do, and bring the kids and, help them to see a different culture, and frankly, just a reminder of just how darn blessed we are here in Lancaster County. And so, again, a great opportunity to go came up, and it's like, why would we not go? And it was kind of crazy. Like, I had someone, cover the clinic who was a retired PT that really had no interest in doing it, but he heard my heart in where I was going and why I was doing it. So she said yes, she would cover the clinic, even though it was kind of outside of her comfort zone. And I look back, I'm like, I can't believe she said yes, right? But she was still, a great person to come and, just be a caring individual for the patients who came through the door that week, but to then go and balance that aspect of my kids need to experience the world and, have, some perspective shaped. I need it for myself, right? To keep challenging ourselves of, I don't want to be comfortable in, all right, well, we just have this little healthy, wealthy life. It's like, no, there's a whole world out there, and man, we need our hearts stirred to impact others and be a blessing to others. And so I wanted my kids to experience that, because I never got to do that as a child, to go overseas anywhere. And there's certainly places worse than Jamaica, but there's, you can go up from Montego Bay up into the mountains. It doesn't look like the resorts, I promise that. And so, that was a great aspect of balancing family time, what God's called us to do outside of business, even though, kind of at the time, financially, it didn't even make any sense to do that. Yeah. But it was where God was calling us. Just having that aspect now of trying to balance, as a father of 4, and, my daughter's a freshman in high school now, and playing field hockey for the, varsity team, and which is awesome, but can I get to these games? And, how do I kind of block out schedule and, try to have some flexibility there, and recognizing that as long as care decisions are being made and people are being taken care of here in the clinic, I don't need to chase one more visit or whatever. It's at the end of the day, as long as people are well cared for, I can block out time. And that's a hard one for me to wrestle with because for 13 and a half years, I didn't have that.
Right.
I couldn't do that even as the leader of clinics. I just never felt the freedom to do that because there was always we need to look at what the census is like. We need to drive these metrics. Honestly, I don't look at metrics. I know roughly how many visits are coming in a week. I couldn't at all tell you what the net revenue per visit is or some of these other metrics, but like it's just balanced of like, okay, so-and-so walked through the door. Have we done all we can for them?
Yeah.
And when they're leaving, did they have a great experience? Did they feel well cared for? Was this different than what they've had at another practice? And if the answer is yes, then God's showing up and using us to do that. And ultimately, for me, that's what it's about. And I don't know, the bank account will take care of the bank account then afterwards. Like, so I can make payroll and I can do those things, right?
That's awesome. And the thing that I hope people take from this is you are not out here chasing a dollar. You are not out here doing things with motivation other than giving the best care. And then being able to have the perspective of, okay, I'm going to sacrifice this 1 patient visit or 2 patient visits to be present at my daughter's game. Like that's the type of business, that's the type of culture, when you talk about culture in a workplace, that is going to attract the right people. It's knowing that when Jordan or Tiana have something with their families, like that's what's going to come first.
Sure.
Patients are being treated well. Okay, you go do what you need to for your family to fill your cup. So that's just a super important distinction that I don't know that every business owner would have.
Yeah, and I just, again, to me, it goes back to, is it a care decision or a business decision?
Yeah.
Make the right care decisions, the business seems to take care of itself, honestly.
Yeah. And it sounds simple, but it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
Yeah, but you also have to fight for that perspective. Like I've asked friends and family to, like, they see me deviating from that, call me out, call me up. Like I don't want to lose that, right? Okay, it's easy to fight for that in year 1, year 2. What does it look like in 5 more years from now, 8 more years from now? Am I losing my way? I don't want to. I need to stay grounded. So that's honestly, I even, love this opportunity to come on and have this conversation with you because it gives a reminder, a grounding point. Like, this is spoken out there. Like, this is true.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose it.
Yeah. The last big discussion I want to have with you here. Mm-hmm. So we've both opened our own PT businesses, but they look very, very different. You decided to stay within the insurance model. I decided to part from that and go the cash-based route. Mm-hmm. There is no right answer, but I want to know I think I already do, but I want to hear the motivation for how you chose to model your business in terms of cash versus insurance, and then I'll kind of give my take. But there's so much out there, and part of it was in my own heart based on my own experiences, but there's almost like this tension out there between, like, you shouldn't go cash based because X, Y, and Z, or you shouldn't stay with insurance because they don't treat physical therapy as a profession well and whatever. But here are 2 men with the same view of following God into business, but going 2 very separate paths. So what led you into the insurance route? Because in a lot of ways that can be a little bit more challenging just from the business perspective, or the reimbursement from insurance, dealing with insurance can be a whole different headache than what I deal with. And then I also face some challenges that maybe you don't.
Correct. So, yeah, I think a couple of things. Number one, right, because I had that non-compete agreement, I had a 10-mile radius around 3 clinics that I couldn't work at. So essentially the whole north-south corridor of the county was blocked for me. So it was either I had to head west or head east. And I headed west, here to E-Town. But I didn't know who was following. I had no idea. Are people going to look up Greg Turner and try to see where he's at when they need physical therapy? I don't know. Maybe that was lack of confidence. Maybe it was just trying to be humble. Probably a mix of both. But it's like, if I then don't accept insurance and go the cash-based route, now I've narrowed the niche a little bit more to, if there were 100 people who would look me up, now do I only have 10 who look me up? And can I make a go of this? So that was kind of one decision. The other decision was, and I will say, I love the cash-based model, and there's a lot that's enticing about that because, again, you can really control the time that you spend with someone well, and you're not, though an insurance company say they don't dictate care, they do. They influence quite a bit, right?
Yes.
And I won't get into that, get on my soapbox about that. But with that said, there are a lot of folks who I interact with that cannot afford, the cash-based side. And so I didn't want to block people out, so to speak. And though even in my self-pay rate, because I do see folks who are self-pay only because they don't have insurance or what have you. But I personally have made that decision too of I will work with folks if they can't afford it or, we'll do hardships or kind of, reduce the payments. Or if their insurance exhausts, we'll do the right thing for them. We'll still take care of them. We'll work something out that they're getting what they need. And then I've got that mindset of the business will be fine. So, I can't run a pro bono clinic, but there are those folks where I'm like, I know I will not be able to maybe impact as many people. And honestly, not really knowing the E-Town market that well, I was like, how many cash-based people are there here? I really didn't know. And so it's like, I'm gonna accept insurance and try to get in with as many plans as I can that seem reasonable. That, some of the plans I participate with, not good reimbursement, right? And being a small sole practice, I get reimbursed a lot less than a hospital system does or a large corporate entity does because they're able to negotiate contracts much more heavily than I can. Yeah. So I'm the bottom, lowest rung on the ladder, but it is what it is, right? And so I can't change that, but it just became a mindset of what's going to give me the ability to impact as many lives as possible. And then, if there's more than I can personally treat, can I build a team of like-minded folks who are in it for those care decisions to take great care of people and become a better practitioner themselves day over day? Okay, then we can impact more lives. And so ultimately that's kind of the route that I chose for those reasons.
Yeah. And you can just hear it through when you speak. It's almost like I don't say this lightly, but almost like the mindset of Jesus, wanting to be out there and being with the masses. And your mindset is I want to provide exceptional care for as many people as we can handle, and just being that resource in the community that people know that they can go to, people know that they can trust. And that it's funny how a similar mindset can manifest in a different way. So with me, I chose the cash-based route.
Yep, I got you, buddy.
All right.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, so we'll see how this edits out, but my internet just cut out completely, and so then I had to rejoin, and so Greg and I were texting back and forth, and he put a text in there that said, enemy, as in Satan is trying to stop this from happening. But we will not let him stop. We will not stop for anybody except for God. Yep. So we're gonna keep pushing along here. So what I was getting into, what I was gonna say is that Greg has this mindset for helping whoever needs help, helping the masses, helping whoever he can, helping whoever needs it in his community. And while I have a similar mindset, me choosing the cash-based route isn't because I want to collect tons and tons of dollars, although cash-based care is a little bit more out of pocket. But for that, I chose that, or I was led that way, because when I was treating 2, 3, 4 people at a time, I did not feel that I was giving my best effort. I did not feel like I could give each person 100%. So working with people one-on-one, I'm able to devote my brain for that hour or so to making the best decisions that I can make for them. Some people have the ability to do that for multiple people. I do not. So I need that full focus of being able to be present with the person in front of me. And with that, there are less fish in the cash-based pond because most people want to utilize insurance and just pay their copay, which is completely understandable for a lot of people. And the services that I offer are geared towards a little bit more specific of a population than most outpatient clinics. So both of us coming at it from a treat God's people first, just in slightly different mediums. So I just wanted to dive into that conversation a little bit, because there is stuff that has led each of us either spiritually or our own motivations, and tying them together into our respective niches here.
Yeah.
All right. So today I am going to invite Greg to do a word up. He is going to share a passage that has spoke to him in stepping out into his own business.
It's time for Word Up.
So in Matthew 22, verse 34 to 40, it's when Jesus has finished sharing some parables, but basically the religious elite are challenging him a little bit. And so it goes like this in verse 34. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. So, it just, again, reminds me of, if we're loving God and we're loving people well, and we're using that to influence our decisions in care, in business, then all the other stuff falls into place.
I love that, because you've said that time after time in this past hour, and then I invite you to share your motivation behind it, and it ties right in. So if there was ever any doubt of what your purpose is, like, you have echoed that all throughout this recording. And the thing that I want people to know about you is you mean it. You are 1,000% saying this because it's coming straight from your heart. There is no worldly filter on that. It is just straight up what he is saying. And I'll tell you this, there have been a couple times where either in my athletic training profession or in my own business where I have been approached with athletes or clients who, we spend some time together, do the initial evaluation, and they decide that cash-based PT is not what they're looking for, whether it's financial or value or whatever the case may be. Greg is the person that I send them directly to every time, because if they want to use their insurance, Greg is the provider that I know will take care of them. Greg is the provider that I know they will have a great experience with. So whenever someone does not want to work with me, I point them in Greg's direction, because I know his character and I know his skill as a clinician. And he just does things the right way. And even the times where we all as humans fall short, it's not because of his lack of effort. It's just because we're human. And I say that not ever knowing of any instances where you fall short, but I'm assuming you're not Jesus. So
just a little bit away.
Well, Greg, I really appreciate you making time for me to come on. You are a business owner, you see patients, you have 4 kids, and yet you're still making time to share your perspective and share the way that God has been working in your life. And I just really appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate your inviting me on here, Kurt. And this was a lot of fun. And again, I really appreciate your heart for the Lord and what he's calling you to do and the way that he's calling you to do it. So, it's really awesome to see.
For anybody who wants to seek your care or find Legacy PT, how can they find you? How can they get in touch with you, Greg?
So I have a website, legacydpt.com. I'm here in E-Town, right on 920 South Spruce Street. Certainly happy to talk if anyone has questions, but yeah, and we'll see if perhaps a second location comes in the county. We'll see.
Okay, we'll be praying for it.
All right. Thanks, sir.
All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Faith in Practice. Thanking Greg one more time for coming on to join us. If you have any questions or if today's conversation sparked anything in you, feel free to reach out. You can find my contact information in the show notes or find me on Instagram at Higher Power Sports PT. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Faith in Practice. We hope you found inspiration and practical wisdom to help you live out your faith on and off of life's playing fields. If today's conversation resonated with you, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us continue sharing stories and insights that empower you to align your faith with your vocation. For more resources or to connect with us, visit hpsportspt.com. That's hpsportspt.com. Remember, your faith isn't just a part of your week, it's a part of your life. Let your light shine.